Hey guys, Brian here with West Prairie Outdoors. Today I'm bringing you a much requested video, and that is going to be installing the Ranger Point Precision Gen 2 handguard on the Henry rifle. The reason I have two models here is there are two models available. We have a loading port model for the bottom of the mag tube and a non-loading port model for if you don't want to use the loading port or if you can't, like in my situation. When I had Louth and Gunworks cut my barrel back, he also had to cut the mag tube back because of the length of the mag tube. Well, in doing so, it caused the loading port to not line up with the loading port cutout in the bottom of the Ranger Point Precision handguard. So I have to use the full model, not the cutout, which is not a problem for me. I wasn't using the loading port anyway, but just something to keep in mind if you've modified your rifle, if the mag tube has been cut back, you need to make sure that it's not too short, that it won't line up with that cutout. So most of you, if you've installed the Gen 1 handguard, you know how to take it apart, and that's not an issue. For those of you that have not, you're dealing with more than likely a factory handguard on your rifle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the disassembly portion of my video from the first video I did installing this handguard, because it does me no good to remove this handguard. That's different than removing the factory handguard. So I'm going to play the first section of video showing you how to disassemble the rifle and get it to the point with the tenon in the rifle, and we'll pick up from there with the installation of this new handguard, and I'll have this stripped to that point. So if you've already seen that, or you're not worried about that, you just want to see the installation of this, go ahead and skip ahead to this time right here, and that will allow you to jump to that point in the future. See you guys in a few minutes with the gun disassembled. Let's get started. First thing we're going to have to do is check, yes, the rifle is clear. So now, we've got to flip the rifle over, get that out of the way. And I think one of the big problems a lot of guys have is they say just getting the handguard off is a nightmare. So let me show you what works for me. Go ahead and get my straight blade screwdriver to get this removed. Go ahead and pop out these two screws on my handguard. Place them in my little parts tray. Get the screw on the other side. Put that in my parts tray. And here is how I get my handguard off. As you see, unlike a traditional handguard, Henry has a pick rail section and a built-in sling swivel slot. So, take your rubber mallet, and boom, handguard's free. You will have to hit your rifle to make some of this stuff happen, guys. You're not going to destroy it. You just got to be gentle with it and somewhat rough. But a good whack, handguard comes right off. I've heard where guys are having to cut them off of here and all kinds of crazy stuff. They've scratched their guns up. Literally, one good whack with a mallet and it comes loose. That's the first time I've done this to this rifle. I have built up another Henry rifle. I did the exact same thing to it. Zero problems. So a good whack with a rubber mallet, you're going to knock it loose and you're done, and you didn't destroy the handguard or mess your rifle up. Okay, next step. You're going to have to drive these two tenons out towards the ejection port. So I need to get my armorer block. I'm going to set it over here. Move a few things around on my desk. One thing I forgot to mention, guys, I am using just a block of wood that's about 1 inch thick, same as my armorer's block. I'm going to elevate my rifle and try to get it as flat as possible on this armorer block so I have a good solid surface to hit and the gun's not jumping all around on me. So you can try to use the Delrin punch if you want, but it is a little more difficult to get things set up. I'm just going to take drive this handguard back a little bit. I'm going to take my mallet and I'm just going to hit this a few times. And it's loose. As you guys see, it is a little nerve-wracking beating on that gun like that, but it did come out. The mag tube end cap is just on there, so you can pop it right off. Comes out with the follower. Okay guys, now that the handguard is loose, what we've got to do is remove the mag tube. And in order to remove the mag tube, this is a bit different than any other ones I've worked on. You've got two set screws here. You've got a set screw on the mag tube and then a backup set screw holding that in place. And those are here on the bottom plate. So what I'm going to do is remove that. This top one is a straight blade screw. So I'll just simply unscrew that. And then this is where it pays to have a long Allen key instead of just something like one of these. With the long one, I can reach down in here and unscrew the other set screw. This is a 5/64 Allen key. So now I can loosen that up. And once it's loose, the mag tube will spin freely. And that comes loose. So now I can slide that bad boy right off of there, drive my handguard off. That has to slide past the tenon. And now we are ready to install the new tenon from Ranger Point Precision. So, set the Allen key out of the way, set my mag tube out of the way, get rid of the handguard that we don't need. And now, that just falls right out. Okay, that was easy enough. Before I start making the new one fit, I'm going to go ahead and take out the screws. They are a 3/32 head on these screws. So I'll go ahead and pop those out, put them in my parts tray. Just one less thing to deal with on there. Okay, now that is a pretty snug fit. Let's see if it'll tap in. That's a little too snug for my liking, so I'm going to lap it with some sandpaper. Alright, so to do the lapping, I'm just going to use some wet dry sandpaper. This is 600 grit. Put a drop of oil on here, and very simply, I'll spread that oil around a little bit, and then I will take my tenon, going in a circular motion, and work on sanding that down. I won't bore you guys with this whole process. This can take a little while, especially with a nice hard stainless like this is. So I'll come back to you once I've got this set to the right size to go in that hole. Okay guys, let's just say this isn't the only piece of sandpaper I've gone through. This stainless steel is extremely hard, but I tell you what, it's a very robust mounting system. I mean, when you compare it to any of the factory ones, not that the factory ones are bad, but just they overbuild these things. They're meant to take a lot of weight, a lot of abuse, and they're going to hold up, and it just takes a little bit to get them worked out. But now I've got a good fit. This is where you'd want to apply some blue Loctite, stake it, all that good stuff. But you guys know I end up taking guns apart a lot with what I'm doing, so I am not going to blue Loctite it or stake it right now because I've got other things I'm going to do where I may want to take this handguard off. For some reason, I may want to take the tenon out. So until I'm completely done with this series, I'm not going to do that. I'll disassemble it at the end and put it back together. So for now, I am going to tap it in. Got a nice solid fit there. Okay guys, so we're picking up. Tenon is installed. Obviously mine is black now because Lauthan coated the entire gun in Cerakote, green and black. So I'm just going to leave that tenon in because it's the exact same tenon. Why would I take it out and put a new one in? So this is the point where some people who have been trying to install the Gen 2 handguard with my Gen 1 video have been running into some issues. I removed the rear plate from the Gen 1 handguard, got it installed in the rifle, and then reinstalled everything else. And you can't do that with the Gen 2 because the new Gen 2 handguard is a one-piece unit, which is awesome. It's very rigid, very robust, and I love the way it fits and feels. But you can't do this with this handguard. So what you have to do is already have your center tenon installed, and then you're going to install the mag tube through the handguard like I should have done in the first round. You run it through the opening for the mag tube in the handguard, and then you're going to install it back in the port on the receiver. And when you do this, mine's a little more difficult because it's coated in Cerakote, so I have to work it into the receiver. There we go. And when you do this, that allows you to install the handguard right where it needs to be. Your screw holes line up. But you're left with this second tenon, and that's where the issue comes in, is you have to get this installed, and you can't drive two tenons in at once like I did in the first video. Well, what you do with this is you slide it onto the mag tube, which again, mine is Cerakoted, so there's a little bit of play in there, or a little tighter. Okay, I tap it in. Now you rotate it and get it lined up with the dovetail. And it's very hard to put all those square corners together. So what you can do is you can chamfer the corners and slightly taper them, slightly round them. And in doing that, that will help guide it into the dovetail on the bottom of the barrel and be much easier to get it started. Once you've got it started, you can flip it over and tap it in with your Delrin punch and rubber mallet and get it set back into the bottom of the barrel channel. And that's where a lot of people have been having problems, is they couldn't figure out this. And it is confusing at first when you're first trying it out. It's a lot to take in. You're like, this isn't going to work. But doing that, chamfering that, will allow you to feed it in there. And also, this is a good point to put in some red Loctite, because you don't want this coming loose later on. So Loctite it in, get those corners chamfered, slightly rounded, and get it tapered so that it will feed in there. Okay, now I'm going to turn it over, move my bags out of the way. I had 2 bags because I have an optic on here and it flops around when you're trying to work on it, so that helps steady the whole thing. I'm going to bring my armorer's block in, and I'm going to turn this so that you guys can see it. So now I'm going to grab my Delrin punch, rubber mallet, and this is where you drive this back in, but first you want to Loctite it really well. You want to make sure that that's not coming out of there. Mine is a slightly loose fit, so it's not going to take much to drive it in. But also, I'm not going to Loctite mine right now because, as you guys know if you follow the channel, these rifles change quite frequently, and I don't want to have to drive that out after it's been Loctited in and keep Loctiting it over and over and over. So I'm going to just keep an eye on it. If it starts coming loose, I'll put some Loctite on it then. But you just want to drive this back in. And then this is where you can slip your mag tube back in the hole. Lock that in place. And now we need some screws on the handguard. So I'm going to get my screws. And this is a 3/32 Allen. Get that going in. Get the other side. And now that everything's where it's supposed to be, I will reinstall or retighten the set screw on the bottom of the mag tube, and then I will reinstall the cap screw that goes over it. And in the previous video, I talked about using an Allen key to get down in there. But now that I have switched to Real Avid for my tool sets, the tip on the 5/64 is actually long enough to get down in here and tighten this up. It's really nice because I don't have to have as many Allen keys laying around, and I like these tool sets. They work extremely well. This tiny screw on the bottom, I'm going to first start by hand, run it in as far as I can, and then I will snug it up. And guys, this one doesn't go all the way down in, it just snugs up to the other screw, and that is it. That handguard is installed, guys, and I think it looks amazing, but there are 4 more things that go on this new handguard that were not on the previous one, and that is going to be 4 tensioning screws. So let me show you how those go in now. So guys, the tensioning screws are a new addition to the Gen 2 handguard, and what they do is help tension the handguard to the barrel. So you have these 4 tensioning screws right here. They're 5/64 all threads, and they go in 2 at the back, 1 on either side at the receiver mount, and then 2 at the tenon, 1 above on each side. And this allows you to tension the handguard to the barrel, and just in case your tenon is a little bit looser than you'd like, this will help secure everything. You don't have to have it as tight as I did in the Marlin video, the previous video. That one was like, you could not get it any tighter if you had to, and it worked out for me, but you don't have to go that tight. So that's a really nice addition, and it helps make this a lot more secure, very rigid. It's not going anywhere, but you definitely want to Loctite these. Also, if you're not used to using a screwdriver, I'm not going to use the big screwdriver on this because you could very easily apply too much torque. It's a 5/64, so instead of using the Allen key that I recommend you guys use, I'm going to use this little stubby screwdriver and back thread it until I feel it catch, and then run it on home. And you want to do this after you've got your tenon installed, in my opinion, because if you do these first, your tenon may not line up properly. Oop, drop my screw. So you just be mindful of that. You want to do this after the fact. and flip it over and repeat the process on the other side. But it's very easy to over torque things like this. With this being an aluminum handguard, you do not want to over torque it. You want to take your time. I've done a lot of work with this kind of stuff, so I know the feel of this kind of aluminum before it's going to strip out. You just want to snug it up and again Loctite it, and you're good to go. That's all there is to it, guys. That is beautiful. It's rock solid and it feels great. I don't know about you guys, but I love the look of this rifle. I love the fit and finish of it. Louthan did a phenomenal job. The action is just smooth as glass. I ran this in the class with Chris Costa back in March, and it did phenomenally well. I ran it hard, never had a single hiccup. I did have a different optic on it then. I had the new Primary Arms RS10, phenomenal red dot. It's sitting on my 357 right now, but right now, the reason I have this optic on here is this is going to be my main hunting rifle for this season. And this is the new Primary Arms SLX Hunter optic. And it's a second focal plane optic. It's all I need for hunting deer with a 30-30. I'm not going to be going 300 and 400 yards. 3 to 9 by 40 gives me plenty of light for where I'm at. And if I had gone 50, you should be able to see right here, there is not much of a gap between that rear sight and the bell of the optic. So 40 millimeters allows me to make that fit perfectly. I believe these are low rings from Vortex, so everything worked out extremely well, and I'm really excited to put this optic to the test. For the money especially, it's very, very clear glass. We're going to go out soon, do some zeroing, see what rounds we're going to use. I've got a few different ones I'm going to try out, and whatever gives me the best groupings is what I'm going to use. So I'll take you guys along for that, getting the rifle ready for deer season. Hope you found this video helpful. I know I kind of rumbled on there, but it's the way it goes sometimes. If you have any questions about the handguard installation or anything else about the rifle, feel free to drop it in the comments below. I'll do my best to answer them. And if you like it, give us a big thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, share us with your friends, and check back often. There's a lot coming, guys. Have a good one.